It's funny how often I talk to people, or I'm doing a seminar, or I'm doing a talk, and people sort of roll their eyes when I mention the idea of vision statements. And that's primarily because people know that they exist, but most of them don't actually mean anything. And so people just reject them. They know that it's something you need to have on the website. They know it's something you need to sort of be able to rattle off. It's nice to have at the start of a shareholders meeting or at a stakeholders meeting or on your letterhead. But most people don't take them seriously because they don't see them actually playing out in their day-to-day work. So let's talk about what makes a really good vision statement, because if you actually have a really good one, it can be tremendously valuable to your organization. If you don't, it means you're probably going to be a bit adrift. And just as a heads up before we go into this next one, you might want to look back at the previous video called Organizational Design 101, where we get into some of these things a bit more. But for today, let's focus on what makes a really good vision statement and how can you actually use it then to drive your organization forward. A lot of people use the phrase vision statement. In your organization, it might be a mission statement. It might be a purpose statement. It could be called something else. So let's talk about, though, what actually is inherent to that. So it doesn't really matter what you call it. Fundamentally, I'm just going to refer to it as a vision statement for the purpose of this video. In a vision statement, you have to tackle two things. Not more than that, just two things to make a good vision statement. The first one is purpose. Why does your organization exist? That needs to be a fundamental part of your vision statement. If that's missing, it's not a vision statement, it's something else entirely. You should call it something else, you should put it somewhere else on your website. Vision statements must have, this is why this organization exists, and it needs to be clear, both to your internal stakeholders and to your external stakeholders. And we'll talk about writing a good one later, but for now, every vision statement should be able to answer that question. So what I do a lot of times when I'm working with clients or when I'm working with students is I'll say to them, pull up your vision statement, your organization's vision statement, and read it. And it doesn't matter how it's formatted, how it's framed, if it's in bullet points, if it's in a paragraph form. What you should be able to do when you're finished with that is say, I understand why this organization exists. It's been stated for me clearly here. So again, what that looks like can be different, but it should answer that question of why this organization exists. The second component to a good vision statement is one that incorporates the organization's values. In other words, what is most important to us as an organization. Not this industry, not this country, not me as a person. As an organization, what are the things we have agreed is most important to us in this organization? And so that should be very clear in terms of your values. So what do you value? Honesty, integrity, whatever the values are for your organization, those should clearly come through in your vision statement as well. So again, while it should answer the question, why does this organization exist? The purpose question. It should also answer what's most important to us in this organization, and that should be reflective of the organization's core values. Again, as I've talked about before, 3 to 5 core values. Those should come through clearly in a vision statement as well. So those are the two key questions that should be answered by a good vision statement. Why does the organization exist? What's most important to that organization? What you'll notice is not contained in there is what does the organization do? And that is where most people fall down, is they become fixated on what do we do on a day-to-day basis? What do we produce? What are our products? What are our services? Those are important things, but that's not part of your vision. The vision is about purpose and values. So that's what the vision statement should be. So if you want to get into mission critical stuff, in other words, what do we do on a day-to-day basis, that can come somewhere else in the vision statement, but I would strongly suggest actually that's a different statement altogether. That's a different page on your website. That's a different part of your handbook. That's a fundamentally different thing. And if you want to hear more about how those three things are different, the purpose question, the values question, and the mission question, look back at Organizational Design 101, which is a previous video we did, and you'll be able to see me go into more detail onto what each of those actually entails. But again, they're different things. A vision statement should have the purpose and the values. Now, why is it so important to have the mission stuff, the day-to-day, what do we do, what do we produce? Why is it so important to have that moved out of the vision statement? Primarily because Your vision statement should be long lasting. It should be long term. It should be something you can stand behind for 10, 15, 20, 30 years, 50 years. Because it's projecting as a vision. Where are we going long term? Your mission, in terms of what do we do, that should change a lot. And sometimes that will change because a new product has emerged, a new technology has emerged, a new idea has emerged. Sometimes technologies in other fields will have emerged. Sometimes, as we're going through now, you have some sort of external crisis. COVID-19 means you need to change your services, your products, your supply chains, how you recruit, how you people work from day to day. So sometimes those changes will come in those ways. But that should change all the time. Your vision statement is something you want to be able to stand behind for literally decades. That's the ideal. Now, I'm not saying it always works out that way, but that's what you should be trying to do. What you want to be doing in terms of day-to-day is constantly thinking about how can we make things better, and that might involve changes that happen from day to day, month to month, year to year. So you want those things to be separated. Your vision statement, purpose, and values, long-term. What you do to achieve your purpose and values, that should change on a regular basis. So you want to split those two things out from each other. So if I'm working with clients or students around this, first thing I ask them to do is go to your website on your phone, your tablet, your laptop, pull up your organization's vision statement. Have a read of it. Does it answer why does this organization exist and what's most important to us? If it does, that's great. You're in really good shape. Now, there still might be work around, is it clear to people what those things mean? Is it clear to not just maybe the senior leadership, but also your new recruits? Is it clear and understandable to everyone, internal and external? That's a different conversation. But if it's answering fundamentally, why does this organization exist and what's most important, you're in really good shape. If instead it focuses more on, this is what we do day to day, this is the product we create, this is the service we provide, then it's not actually a vision statement, and then it can't be used in the rest of your organization because that's just about your essentially staff handbook, and that's not what a vision statement should be. Now, when you've gotten to a place where you have a good vision statement, our why and our what's most important is answered, we've pulled out the what do we do bits, and you've got that separated, then what that allows you to do is if you're really focused on creating a strong organizational culture, one that's going to be able to adapt and evolve over time, which every organization needs to be able to do if it's going to be sustainable, if it's not just going to be following the pack and trying to keep up. If that's the kind of organization you're trying to create, that clear vision statement allows you to have focused conversations throughout the organization on a huge array of topics, whether that's marketing, finance, new client acquisition, business development, whatever the conversation is, all of it should then feed back into why do we exist, what's most important to us. And then you're having debates around these things, but focused on a clear, shared vision statement. If you don't have that shared vision statement, you get people competing for resources, competing for time, moving in a million different directions that will benefit them, but don't necessarily benefit the rest of the organization. Not because they're bad people, but because there isn't something clearly binding them together. And there's probably incentives in your organization, which we'll talk about later, that are pulling people apart. So that's what a good vision statement allows you to do. It allows people to come together and agree on a shared vision, and then the arguments, the disagreements are about what's the best way to utilize our people, to utilize our resources, to think differently in new ways, to enable us to get there together. I hope that's helpful to you in thinking about what makes a good vision statement and then why it's so important to actually have one. But again, this is a very easy take-home. Go look at your organization's vision statement and see what it does. Does it answer why do we exist and what's most important to us? If so, you're probably in good shape. Again, we can work on improving that, but you've got the basics of it there. If it's got a bunch of different stuff about what we do on a day-to-day basis, that's the kind of stuff you want to look at pulling out. It's a conversation you should be having at all levels of the organization. Are we clear on why we exist, what's most important? Because that's really what makes an organization sustainable and vibrant over time. Thanks so much for watching. As always, if you have questions or comments, please leave feedback below or get in touch with us and our contact information. Happy to engage.
Cause